Christian Union today will be Tim Patrick. Tim is an Anglican minister working at St Jude's Union Church in Carlton, chaplain to the University of Melbourne, and adjunct lecturer at Ridley, Melbourne Mission and Ministry College. Prior to working in Christian ministry, Tim was an experimental scientist with the CSIRO, where he worked in mineral chemistry and published a number of papers in international peer-reviewed journals. He turned down 2 offers to study for a PhD in earth science to turn his attention to theology. Tim has a first-class honours in science from the University of Sydney, where he majored in earth science, and a Master of Divinity from Ridley, Melbourne. Tim Patrick.
G'day, I'm going to stand, I'm going to use piggies, so I hope you can see them. I want to present you a Christian view. I'm not here to say that this is the Christian view, certainly not the official Christian Union view. I don't know if they even have one. It might upset some of you that it's not a fundamentalist creationist view, the soft target we all love, but it's a view that I hold and hold quite strongly, and lots of other Christians hold it too. I'm going to tell you 3 things. I'm going to tell you what I believe. I'm going to give you a paradigm that helps you understand why I believe it. And then I'm going to show you something out of the Bible that I think supports what I believe. Thanks. Okay, so my view is basically this. I think the Earth is between 5 and 6 billion years old, and the universe is more like 14 billion years old. I'm happy to take the correction and say 13.8. I think that creation came through the combination of physical, chemical, geological, and biological processes that we've heard about. Basically, I believe everything that is accepted in the mainstream sciences. Everything we've heard today and more. The obvious question then is, isn't that contrary to Christian teaching? Isn't that contrary to the teaching of the Bible? Especially the book of Genesis, especially Genesis chapter 1, that seems to say something different. Am I shying away from the embarrassing stuff? No, I'm committed to biblical Christianity. And I believe I have very good and rational reasons for believing the Bible. And that's a different conversation. I'm happy to have that at another time. I don't believe anything we learn in the natural sciences contradicts anything we learn from the Bible. I don't believe that God has woven a deception into the universe to test our faith. People who see a contradiction generally have a simplistic view, either of science or of the Bible. I actually think that believing in 7-day creation not only ignores the science, it actually ignores close reading to the message and the intention of Genesis chapter 1. So let me give you a paradigm that might help you understand the way that I think about it. I'm going to go to the next slide, the picture I drew. In terms of events in time, most of us can make good observations about the universe around us. We can look a little way into the past and a little way into the future, and we're able to interpret and make sense of a lot of what we see. We do this at the everyday level all the time. We also do it in the more precise and sophisticated works of formal scientific investigation. However, on the very distant horizons of time, right back in the origins of the universe and right into the future of the universe, we can't see everything with clarity. That's true whether you're a person of faith or a scientist who's opposed to faith. There are things at the limits of time that we cannot see. Even scientists get quite speculative when talking about the very early history of the universe and the first origins of life. They get even more speculative when they hypothesize what happened in the prehistory of the universe. Read Hawking throws out some great ideas with no evidence. The Large Hadron Collider, I'm sure, will tell us new things about fundamental particle interactions. I'm a friend who's working in that area. But it will still leave lots unanswered. This is all okay. This is all okay. It's just being honest and acknowledging that some things are beyond the limits of our direct observation. That's okay. However, I agree with what Ian says. The human mind is inquisitive. And there is a great desire to know where we've come from and where we're going. It's right to be inquisitive. So we inquire. This is my computer desktop. It's my 4th year geology field area. Interesting young granulite facies rocks for those who care. When you look at a computer screen, tiny little icons of documents, spreadsheets, folders, all that kind of stuff. And through this screen, I can open documents, I can type onto the pages, I can organise my files by putting them into folders, I can put other folders into other folders. But what I see on the screen is not a direct representation of what is going on inside my computer. If I crack my computer open and have a look inside, I do not find tiny little files with tiny little writing in tiny little folders, in other tiny little folders, right? I don't find that. I find circuit boards and microchips and things that have blips of electricity racing around that I really don't understand. The screen is not a magnifying glass that just helps you see the little stuff up close. It's a helpful interface, isn't it? It's an interface that someone has designed. It doesn't show you the reality. It doesn't even pretend to show you the reality. It provides the best way of thinking about and organising what's going on in your PC. Everyone knows this. No one is deeply troubled by it. It's an excellent way to think about what goes on inside your computer. We have this interface to make sense of and work with things that are beyond our comprehension. Again, none of us can see into the origins or ultimate future of all things. That's just the limitation of being human. But again, it's important to have some way of understanding the essentials about the past and the future if you want to have a proper view of where you are now. So wouldn't it be great to have an interface? A way of understanding the essentials of the beginning and the end of time. A way of looking in that told you a bit about what you needed to know so you could make sense of it. Well, here's my paragraph. The books of Genesis and Revelation, the first and last books of the Bible, significantly, were written to serve as those interfaces for us. They provide us with helpful ways of understanding the most important points about the origin and destiny of all things. Please note a couple of things here. The purpose is not to explain the details of particle physics or the biology. According to the Bible, there are actually more important truths for human beings to deal with. That means that these questions out here are still left there to be answered if you're interested in them. Go and smash particles and have a look. That's a great thing to do. The second thing to note is, the whole Bible is not like this. I do not read the Bible allegorically or as a big analogy. Most of the Bible falls in the period between the very beginning and the very end. Most of the Bible doesn't deal with the distant horizons, but it doesn't and is not written in the picture language of those books, and is presented to us as straightforward, read it off the page, history that makes sense in the same way that most things we study make sense. The interfaces that were given are just those two first and last books of the Bible to look at the past and the future. So the question then is, how do we understand, how do we interpret the interfaces, how do we read them? There are lots of wacky ideas out there, right? I bet I know more of them than you do. Fruitcakes who come up with weird ideas about what Genesis says and what Revelation says. Christians as well as people who aren't. But what we need to do is actually look closely at the text itself to see what it actually says, rather than what we want to press on it with our Sunday school reading. We haven't got time to go through this in detail. It will take hours. But what I'm going to do is show you one thing. The first chapter of the Bible is packed with very meaningful ancient Hebrew symbolism. Now, again, I'm not going to talk about it all. I'm going to highlight one thing for you. The thing to notice is it's symbolism around numbers. I want you to understand this. I'm not talking about superstition. I'm not talking about unlucky 13 or your Chinese lucky number 8. I'm not talking about numerology or mystical numeric calculations. I'm talking about a symbolic number. We don't have many in English. Perhaps the best example is 110%. Okay? It's a nonsense number. Everyone knows it's a nonsense number. But you know what it means when I say 110%, don't you? It means more than everything I've got. I'm behind you and then some. The Beatles, who I don't like, wrote a song called 8 Days a Week, right? Now everyone knows they're not saying it was really 8 days a week. They're making a point, aren't they? They're pressing something to illustrate a point. The Hebrews had lots of symbolic numbers. The number 12, the number 3, the number 7 is the particular one I want to think about. 7 is the most significant number for Hebrew people. It's a symbolic number and it symbolises perfection, ordered arrangement, and that something is divine, of God. Okay? Something is godly, you stick the number 7 on it. Let me show you how this is one of the keys to understanding the first chapter of the Bible. The use of the number 7 in Genesis is not meant to tell you how many days it took God to make the world. It's meant to symbolically underscore the fact that the creation is divine and is from God. For those with eyes to see, you will notice that the number 7 is woven deeply into the literary patterns of this text. Most obvious to us is the 7 days a week. That's where we get frustrated and throw it away and say it's stupid. But let's think about it a bit more. That's just the tip of the iceberg. You see, when you read it, the creation story only actually takes 6 days. But it's important for them to add a 7th day, because you want to round up to 7, have that symbolic 7 in there. In the original Hebrew language, which I've brought with me over there, for anyone who reads Hebrew and wants to check it, the noun God appears 35 times, a multiple of 7. The noun earth or land, same word, appears 21 times, a multiple of 7. After the introductory 2 verses, there are 7 paragraphs, each with a set form corresponding to the 7 days. 6 times is repeated the phrase, God saw that it was good. Plus 1, God saw that it was very good, focusing on and emphasising on the 7th statement. The 7th paragraph has 35 words, and within that there are 3 consecutive sentences of 7 words, and each of those sentences focuses on the phrase, the 7th day. Now, do you think the point of all this is the world was made in 7 days? Is Genesis claiming to be that big magnifying glass that allows you to look back in space-time and see what God did on a Monday morning one time? Or is the number 7 being woven into the fabric of the text to reinforce the explicit point that God is divine? That the creation, rather, is divine, is of God. It makes sense, doesn't it? It would be strange if the Bible opened by outlining the physical, chemical, geological and biological processes of creation. Genesis is not particularly interested in those things, but interested in talking about the ultimate origin of all things. It is a highly crafted literary text that does talk about the created universe, but its main concern is that we see that the created universe has an intended relationship with its creator. Is it a scientific text? It's not using scientific language. It's not making a scientific point. Of course it's not a scientific text. It looks nothing like any scientific text I have ever read. To read Genesis 1 as a straightforward chronology of 7 days is clumsy. To attack Genesis 1 as a straightforward chronology of 7 days is really to attack a straw man and is to take the challenge to the Sunday school kids. Well, that's tough. It's a poetic interface that's making a much bigger point and attacking some far bigger and deeper questions. This is what it teaches us. You may not believe it, but this is what it teaches us. God existed before the earth. To use the language of Genesis 1, it talks about earth, haaretz. You might like to substitute universe if you like. God created the earth. God created the earth good. Human beings have a special place in God's earth. What it actually does is really answers the real question. You see, ultimately, whether the earth took 7 days or 7 billion years to come into existence really doesn't change much of how any of us live today, does it? These are academic, but not life-changing things. The real question is there someone behind it? Is there someone behind it? Are we all alone and just limited by our ability to collide bigger particles together? Or is there a God out there who's involved with this world that we need to engage with too? And the point that Genesis wants to make is, there is. There is. And this is much closer to the point of the text than the claim that the world was made in 7 24-hour periods. I quickly want to finish by saying something about focus. Lots of people love taking pot shots at the Christian faith. I don't mind that at all. I'm not scared of the questions. I don't think God is particularly scared of questions either. What I do mind is when people take pot shots but don't engage in proper conversations. So I'm really grateful for a forum like this where we can talk together. But I want to offer you a hint. If you're someone who likes having a pot shot at the Christian faith, I want to offer you a hint that might help you mount a more serious challenge. Aim for the heart. Aim for the heart. The centre of the Christian faith is a person, Jesus of Nazareth. The man, who he is and what he did, is at the core. The Christian claim is that he is an historical figure, and we often must for historical investigation. Real universities study the history of this guy. If you can demonstrate to me that the claims that we make about Jesus of Nazareth are wrong, then I will abandon my faith and I will join you in exposing the fraud. However, I have not yet heard a credible, rational, sustainable attack on him. And so I continue to believe. There is other important stuff to think about, that's true. There are other interesting questions to explore, and the age of the earth is an interesting question to explore. The days of creation, as we see in Genesis chapter 1, are a literary device, always intended as such, and they're used to make some points, and I believe the points it makes are true. But these are not core matters. I'm not a Christian because of what Genesis 1 says. My faith doesn't hang on that. It hangs on Jesus, because he is where the Christian faith rests. Jesus is really the core of the debate, the core of the question. You're free to go for this stuff. I'm happy to talk about it. But again, if you want to have a shot at the Christian faith and see if it does stand up to any kind of real, rational, rigorous attack, have a shot at Jesus. I'd love to be part of that conversation.